Hi guys. Okay, every time I turn around, there seems to be more and more information coming out spells not only a cover up, but what really starting to sound like murder for the Antonin Scalia judge case, the U.S. Supreme Judge. Anyways, folks, um, there's just so much out there nowadays. It almost sounds like these guys, when they got to the scene, had orders from somebody to push it through fast, and kind of like MIB showed up ahead of time. I hate using that term, but basically, like everybody got phone calls from somebody that said, "Hey, make this happen and make this situation, go away." And when it finally got to that point, everybody had already mismanaged the situation to where now even things that shouldn't be irregular are seeming irregular. And on top of that, I still think he died of unnatural causes. So there's a homicide detective who basically says that there's some kind of injection mark on Scalia's body before embalming and everything. You have William O. Ritchie, a former head of criminal investigation in D.C. for the police, who basically came out on Facebook and said, as a former homicide commander, I am stunned no autopsy was ordered on Justice Scalia. Now, this is all from him. I'm just going to read it as it is because there's a lot of weird stuff in here, and you need to hear this. Scalia was found dead in his room in a luxury hunting resort in the big state's Big Bend region by the resort's owner. I'm going to stop you right there, and I'm going to tell you something really weird. First off, I understand why the owner's involved, because VIPs generally, get higher treatment, so the owner wants to make sure everything is good, fine. But he was found by the owner, folks, of the resort. And it took hours for the authorities to find a justice of the peace. When they did, Presidio County Judge Cinderela Guevara pronounced Scalia dead of natural causes without seeing the body or ordering an autopsy. So this guy here, William O. Ritchie, again, he's basically going on and says, you have a Supreme Court judge dead, not in attendance of a physician. You have a non-homicide trained U.S. Marshal who tells the Justice of the Peace that no foul play has been observed. You have a Justice of the Peace pronounce the death while not being on the scene and without any medical training, opinining that the justice died of a heart attack. The medical proof alone, or exists alone, of a myocardial infarction. Why not a cerebral hemorrhage? So this guy goes on and on. He's basically saying, this guy was one of our own, and you guys basically just wrecked the mismanagement part of this. And everybody's kind of going, well, holy crap. Now everybody involved is getting screwed. Because somebody on high told the guys on the ground to get rid of this and toss it away, and they mishandled the hell out of this. And you know what? Nobody was expecting this, so nobody was ready. But still, now it's coming back on everybody because it just got mismanaged. And according to the Washington Post, Texas law permitted Presidio County Judge Cinderela Guevara to pronounce Scalia dead without seeing his body or ordering the autopsy. So basically, this guy here, like I said, William O. Ritchie, former criminal investigation at D.C., he's a homicide detective, commander, or an ex-guy that did that stuff for a living. So now he's basically saying, not only did the marshal not have homicide training, they couldn't find a justice of the peace. When the judge ordered it, she had no legal precedent to even confirm dead without seeing the body or ordering an autopsy. So those two things legally had to be done before Presidio County Judge Cinderela Guevara even could have done her job by ordering Scalia legally dead, or whatever situation is involved in that. I'm sorry, I don't know the judicial form of that. All I know is basically you show up on scene and somebody says you're dead. So basically, that's going on. Guevara said she made pronouncement based on information from law enforcement officials who were at the scene who asserted that there was no sign of foul play. Ritchie continues on Facebook post questioning the U.S. Marshals who were there on the scene. So Ritchie's again the U.S. The whole thing is on Ritchie's standpoint. This is the guy, the D.C. guy who did homicide his entire life, and he's basically saying, "How do you know this? How do you know this? How do you know this? Why did all this happen?" So Ritchie continues his Facebook questioning the U.S. Marshals who were there on scene. How can the U.S. Marshals say without thorough post-mortem that he was not injected with an illegal substance that would have stimulated a heart attack? He wrote. Did the U.S. Marshal check for petechial hemorrhage in his eyes or under his lips? Would have suggested suffocation? Ritchie continued. Did the U.S. Marshal smell his breath for an unusual odor? Might have suggested poisoning. My gut tells me that there is something fishy going on in Texas, he concluded. So, folks, I'm going to show you this, but this is all right here. I mean, this guy is from their people, folks. William O. Ritchie, former head of criminal investigations in D.C. police. This guy is not a rookie. He's probably got 20, 30 years of looking at different people going, yep, that person died of natural causes. Yep, that person jumped. That person was poisoned. Nobody liked him. I'm sure there's a reason why he died. So, I mean, there's just everything here, folks. Look at this. I highlighted this entire thing because there's just so much here. I'm going to highlight it one more time for you so that we understand what is actually going on. Alright. Scalia's body was found in a luxury room of a hunting resort in Texas's Big Bend region by the resort's owner. How is it that this guy got involved to where he found a Supreme Court judge dead? Nobody knows. Nobody's talking about it. Fine, we'll skip that part. It took hours for the authorities to find a justice of the peace. When they did, Presidio County Judge Cinderela Guevara pronounced Scalia dead of natural causes without seeing the body or ordering an autopsy. And according to this, basically, this guy wrote, the Ritchie guy who is the the D.C. Homicide guy who had years and years and years and years of experience as a commander of this stuff, said, you have a non-homicide trained, you have a Supreme Court judge who had died, not in attendance of a physician. You have a non-homicide trained U.S. Marshal tell the Justice of the Peace there was no foul play observed, and it took hours for them to even find a Justice of the Peace. You have a Justice of the Peace pronounced death while not being on the scene, while without any medical training opinion that the Justice died of a heart attack, with medical proof exists of a myocardial infarction. Why not a cerebral hemorrhage? And he basically goes on, he says, the Presidio County Judge Cinderela Guevara was pronounced Scalia dead without even seeing the body and ordering an autopsy. That's illegal under that situation. I went into that before. He basically continued and said the U.S. Marshals on the scene, how can they say this without post-mortem, without thorough post-mortem? He could have been injected with an illegal substance which could have stimulated a heart attack. Did the U.S., Marshal check for petechial hemorrhage of his eyes under his lip that would have suggested suffocation? Did the U.S. Marshal check his breath for an unusual odor which might suggest poisoning? And now the guy is basically saying his gut tells him there's something fishy going on in Texas. And basically, we'll probably never know the truth of what really happened that night. The evidence has been severely compromised, and Obama's, you get the idea there. So, folks, I want to talk about this because I kind of do believe this guy died. I mean, heart of heart kind of tells me that he was found with like a pillowcase on him. That's one of the things I've heard. I've heard there was one or two chicks there that were kind of helping out, so to speak. That's what I've heard. I've heard there was several vehicles coming, going, checking on him, and that there was one outside where he was at, and it had driven off, before the guy went to check on the judge. I don't know if that's even true. I have no idea if there's roads anywhere near what room he was staying in the resort, but this is all speculation. So we have a justice of the peace who is basically, everybody is furious that this guy, was one of theirs. And they couldn't even help out with one of theirs. I mean, it took hours for them to find the justice of the peace. The justice of the peace didn't do her job. She declared a death and everything else without seeing the body. I went through that list twice already. This is outrageous, folks. I don't want to say he died of bad situations, but everything kind of points to that somebody in the background had their authority in this situation that said, make this go away now. And I even talked to you on the other video that said how, how he was embalmed like 3 or 4 hours after everything took place. So they ran around trying to find a justice of the peace. There was no physician that even bothered to call time of death. The justice of the peace said that he was dead of natural causes without looking at the body, without doing this, without doing that, and something Shia would have done on scene, folks. Wasn't even taken to a hospital that I'm aware of. And then as soon as they made it to somewhere worthwhile, what were they doing? They weren't opening him up, checking him for an autopsy, and doing post-mortem checks. They were embalming him, folks. That doesn't happen. Holy crap. Holy crap baskets, I should say. Somebody at the top murdered this guy.